Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Experience Insiders, a video series where we sit down with experts and practitioners who are creating next-gen experiences. And I am thrilled to have back on the show with me today 40 Under 40 winner and experience strategist, Ari Peralta. Ari, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having us here.
So like I said, it's great to have you on Experience Insiders once again, because you are doing some new exciting work with color. Before we dig into the topic at hand, can you explain to those watching what your work entails as a sensory designer?
Well, I'm very proud to have combined 3 different careers to really build up to what is a sensory designer. But in essence, we find synergy between design, product, and experience. So it's finding a congruent formula of sensorial elements designed to amplify and engage that go beyond aesthetics.
Fascinating. And you're a founding partner of Origami and a partner at My Cocoon. So how do your passion points and roles within these worlds intersect, if at all? Because I feel like this world is so fascinating. There's so many components to it. So maybe you can break it down for me.
Well, at Origami, we focus on agile and interdisciplinary research. We help innovation teams solve problems using these sensory insights. Now, I consider Origami a sensory playground. This is where we invite partners to experiment, to iterate, to prototype, and test out new concepts that focus on sensory integration. My Cocoon is our consultancy that supports brands with color and sensory brand activations and installations. Now, this was built up from the ground up by Pantone consumer brand founders, Valerie Corsias and Dominique Kelly. And our creative and technology collective at My Cocoon, basically we use color as a sensory anchor to build experiences that have emotional context. And this is something that we use color as an emotional tool to support shopper wellness, to increase memory, and also to connect people socially. So it's sensory insights in action at My Cocoon.
Fascinating. So let's double click into that, because I feel like historically or traditionally, when we talk about color or think about color, it's through the lens of, brand colors, through the lens of like branding, like a branding palette that you use to create consistency. But it seems like there's it's a deeper element that is possibly undertapped in certain retail circles. So is that fair to say? And if so, how is it applied?
I think that's a great thing to say. And our understanding of color has evolved, and now our applications of color is really now following suit with that evolution of understanding and knowledge. So first of all, let's break the ice with what color isn't, right? We're not sure if color is real. Color seems to be a computation created by the brain to really understand wavelengths and energy. So it is something that we perceive versus something we just see. And color is very personal, which is where it gets tricky. We've spoken about color in the past, especially in retail, as a tool for trends, for inventory selection, etc. And what we're understanding now is that color is a code. It's a code for the brain to unlock memories and different sensory experiences. So it's a primal element from a biological and evolutionary standpoint. And what we're advancing now is leveraging technologies that allow us to understand how to personalize color and how to deliver color in a way that you'll perceive what we're asking.
That's fascinating. So when you say it's something personal and it's like our brain trying to comprehend or make sense of things, like what immediately popped into my head is like those color challenges on social media, like, oh, is the dress, what is it, like gold and black or like blue and gray? Is that kind of like what you're getting at? Like our brains consume and make sense of color differently?
Yeah, for sure. And, we have to understand that, the wavelength, let's say the measurement of a color, let's say of a lemon, right? That yellow that you see, or the yellow that you see on a rainbow, or the yellow you see emitted on a screen. Believe it or not, those are 3 different wavelengths. They're not the same wavelength, yet we all perceive them as yellow. So it's very interesting how the brain works, and it's almost like pixels. So for all of us on the creative side who are familiar using some kind of visual technology, the brain captures color as in pixels. And there's different types of um, biological setups, if you will, that we have as humans, right? We have people who are colorblind, so they already have a limitation to what they can see. But then we also have about, I think now 12 to 15% of women are tetrachromats who can see a lot more color. So
Wow.
maybe, and that's what leads to that dress question. And a lot of the research that we're so proud to support and be part of is being conducted at the University of Leeds, part of Professor Stephen Westland's group, who's doing a lot of work with color science. And when you hear about some of the projects and some of the challenges that clients have, it's typically been more on the material side and how to ensure that a specific color can be, let's say, perceived on materials that are non-traditional. But we're looking at color as emotions. We're looking at a completely different area of color and understanding how can we use color to anchor experiences that aren't so much sensory designed, but enrich the sensory experience. So I'll give you an example. Blue seems to be calming for some, but it may not be calming for you, Alicia. So we learn what color is calming to you, and we deliver those personalized color experiences in a way that you have the context already.
Great. So, perfect transition point because I really want to get into the heart of the power that color can hold, especially as we think about customer experience and especially in physical environments because we're at this juncture that where so many people are thinking about the role of the store, the type of feeling they want to evoke or create for their customers. So, how can color influence that, especially as we think about using data and personalization to get to that individual level? Like, how does that become fully realized?
So ultimately, brands are seeking personalization and
Mhm.
they're looking for personalized environments and activations. And this is all they talk about now.
Yeah.
But how do we get there? It's about evolving how we approach sensory content. Typically, the way we approach sensory content now is through what we call sensory design, which is here's a bunch of experts designing and creating the story around different sensory stimuli, including color. What we're noticing is that we're missing out on about 80% of consumers who don't identify with the context that's been provided by the brand. In other words, they have something else in their mind. So, what we started looking at from a neuroscience angle was can we anchor an experience by starting with your brain first? So, instead of telling you the story, can we identify how you connect with, let's say, something as simple as a color and let you drive that experience based on your emotions? And I think that's what you're going to see a lot now with the evolution and integration of hyperphysical stores, where we use a lot of digital content or spatialized content in Web3 and integrate them into physical experiences that amplify not just our sensory perception, but our way to engage inside a store. We're also seeing a really huge shift in the focus in wellness. You know, we've worked with wellness for the last 5 years across sectors from automotive to spaceships. And it's now the time that retailers are truly talking and walking the walk with wellness. Um, and it's great for us to create personalized experience that can help transform people. And I think that's a really big note that I want to add. I think we're in the later stages of the experience economy. In other words, we're all creating experiences and it's starting to become redundant and saturated. So, what do we do? I think the next step is creating behavioral change, transformation.
Right.
And I think that's what we're entering now is a transformation economy where subtle elements like color can create and guide the experience. Now, with technology such as projection mapping, augmented reality, and VR, but I'll stick to the first two projection mapping and augmented reality, partnered with new sound systems with spatial sound, partnered with new visual systems like OLEDs, and partnered with smart multi-protocol lighting, you really now can create a tailored experience that is almost organic and moves around the shopper. And you need sensory profiles to do that, right? In order to achieve that, in order to really create sensory environments that add value to the customer journey, you need to understand what your customers react well to.
Right. That's a great point. So digging a little bit deeper into the feelings that color can evoke, I love that you made the reference to, wellness, creating a sense of calm. Again, to your point, it could be blue for someone or green for another person. I think that nuance is really interesting. But I mean, what kind of feelings can color evoke, or can it even influence other senses? I guess I'm just trying to understand the full scope of what is
So,
possible when a brand can use color effectively.
part of what we're really excited about is to deliver our upcoming workshop on unlocking the senses for sensory design in retail. And we're doing that next week in Chicago. And part of what we're going to be discussing is how do the senses work? And ultimately, the easiest way to look at it is that the senses are our windows to reality, they're receptors. And we're talking about all senses, not just vision, but also our hearing, our smell, our taste, but also our ability to sense our organs, our ability to sense temperature and hunger and thirst. These are the windows that kind of represent what we feel in every single moment. Now, if you go back to what I said about color, which is really the relationship between light and dark, right? There is no such thing as color. It's really the perception we have between those. Because it's so primal, color informs the brain before sound does, and before other elements like shape and distance. So before our brain, our predictive brain, establishes if you like something or not, it first establishes what color is that and what emotions do you associate with that color. That really leads to your answer, which is color can evoke all emotions. Now, which emotion? That's personal and perceptual to you. And I think that's what's really interesting and exciting for brands. It was something that we feared before because we couldn't scale it. But now, with some of these new technologies, including some of the Web3 and Metaverse integrations, we're blurring the lines of what we can integrate and really create environments that are the environments that you want to shop in versus the brand telling you to shop in.
So you've mentioned Web3 and the metaverse a few times, and everybody's thinking about, what does this mean for my business? Is it a standalone strategy or entity? Is it something that can converge or blend into physical spaces? So what does this opportunity mean for you? What work are you doing as far as Web3 goes? And how does color play a role there? Because it's I feel like it's so fascinating. There are probably so many layers to it, but what is the real opportunity for you right now?
So, in order to understand Web3, we got to go back to the beginning of the internet. And when we
Hmm.
first started having email and Google and some of the establishments that now we, as part of our lexicon, we have to go back to that sense of the unknown. We were a bit scared about it. We were a bit trepidatious about it. But one thing that we learned were that players who jumped on digital transformation early are the players who are running the show today, like Amazon. So let's start from that basis. Web3 is the spatialized version of the internet we have today. What does that mean? Before, we weren't able to walk in to a brand's website. Now, with some of the new technologies that are being developed, we'll be able to walk in and we'll be able to also continuously interact with new ways to purchase. And we're seeing that very strongly with examples like Roadblock and Fortnite, which are huge game platforms where retailers are actually creating new digital spaces and selling digital content. Now, moving beyond, we see Web3, at least my cocoon, we see Web3 as an opportunity to bring mindfulness and connection, meaning, and some of those other values that we forgot to bring early on the internet, on Web2. We want to bring those to to spatialized internet, to Web3. We're working currently on a Color Mood NFT project, which gives members and holders access to wellness classes and activities. And this is just one of many examples of how brands can utilize not just color, but again, color driven through these technologies to create community, to create a sense of value, and most importantly, meaning. These are the three things that we feel are needed right now in the market, especially post um, as we exit the COVID era, if you will.
Yeah. I really like that distinction that you brought up because when people think about metaverse, I think they largely think about, people with like the VR headset on, they're isolated, they're in their own space. Do I think there's risk there? Absolutely. But, among all of the people who are doing these projects, who are working with the world builders and are very immersed in Web3, it seems like the untapped opportunity that keeps coming up is basically what you said. It's the community, it's the connection, it's creating a space for people to come together, but like through a new way, through a new medium. So I think it's really enlightening that you're emphasizing that and using it as a entry point for wellness and for mindfulness, which you don't usually see that association. So that was one big takeaway that stuck out to me.
One of the things that we can look at as an example, as a real example of what's been done, if we take great brands like Nike or Ralph Lauren, who are really pioneers in physical store personalization, at least with product, basically take that example and apply it to the store, whether it's digital
Right.
or physical. Now, as consumers, we're going to have an opportunity to invite consumers to co-create environments with us, to co-create products with us. And you said the key word, world building. This is what world building is. Nike did it with shoes, right? And designing maybe
Mhm.
some of the aspects. Ralph Lauren did it with colors and maybe textures, etc. Now we're going to be able to do that literally with walls, with seating, with music, and every element of the store, bringing opportunities to people who wanted personalized experiences who were left out. And I think that's the great caveat here. If we do this correctly, we have a chance to make experiences, in particular wellness experiences through retail, equitable.
Hmm. Equitable. That's a good word. So Ari, I feel like we could talk hours and hours about this topic. It's so fascinating, especially as we talk about how it bleeds into not just stores, but also in these virtual spaces and environments that are really, I mean, they haven't been fully optimized or fine tuned. There's no silver bullets solution just yet, but I think that the level of testing and learning that brands are doing is super exciting. But what's next for you? And of course, My Cocoon, anything new coming down the pike that we should spotlight?
With My Cocoon, again, we're continuing to use color to support designers, to support creatives and the creation of wellness experiences in store. But beyond wellness, we're also looking at things like circadian health, at social connection, and how to highlight the product in new ways. We're really excited about a new partnership we have with Kimball International, one of the largest furniture manufacturers in North America, and
Wow.
exploring how does furniture play a role in this experience. Now, we know a thing or two about the senses, in particular because of our background in sensory research. But what we're really looking forward on my end is really starting to partner with brands to showcase a smarter, more supportive way to engage. Let's say through smart mirrors, through multi-protocol lighting, and create visceral experiences that can be felt, in addition to adding a layer of wellness into everything we do.
Incredible. Ari, thank you again so much for taking the time out. It was great learning about the true value and potential impact of color, and most of all, how brands and retailers can be more thoughtful about how they embrace it across all channels. So, thank you again so much for taking the time out.
Thank you so much.
And to all of you, hope you enjoyed this fascinating conversation. We would love to keep the conversation going with you on social media. Drop us online on LinkedIn, ask some follow up questions. We'll be sure to bring Ari into that fold. But for now, that's it from us. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and stay tuned for more episodes of Experience Insiders. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.